Ladies and gentlemen, today is Monday, October 11th, 2021. I'd like to call to order this regular board meeting of the Othello School District Board of Directors. We had a meeting prior to this one, and we did our flag salute then, so we will proceed with the meeting. I'd like to welcome our guests, those of you that are here in the boardroom. Thank you for being here. Those of you that are online, appreciate you all as well, taking time to watch us as we conduct our meeting tonight. Recognizing that your time is very valuable, yet you take some time to watch us conduct ours. I will entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
I motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Motion's been made by Director Prowse. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Seconded by Director Johnson. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item B1. Marissa, do we have any public comment tonight? All right, just would like to remind the community that there is an avenue, a forum for public comment. Don't forget that if you need to address the board, there is an avenue. Moving on to item B2, board member discussion. First item on there is the legislative report. Director Stevenson.
So an update on, we had talked about trying to meet with our state legislators again.
Mm-hmm.
I have emailed them and I'm waiting to hear back. I requested 2 or 3 possible dates, whether it's in person or by Zoom or a duo for all different parties. Anyways, so just to give you that update. And then I can pass this information on to our student reps, but WASDA is doing their first student representative network on Tuesday, October 19th. And so can you give that to them? And they want the emails. I think I showed Consuelo how to find it, but how to sign up for their email list for student reps. That is it for legislative report.
All right, appreciate that. Our second bullet there, Director Stevenson has kind of forewarned me, but we'll try to keep it as concise as we can. Pertains to the General Assembly that will happen on the 29th and 30th of October. I will be the district's voting member, but I believe tonight we'll have a discussion as to what kind of priorities or our top priorities as a district that we may suggest, if that's the right word, to WASDA. So having said that,
Great.
I was going to say you got 5 minutes, but no, go ahead.
So I sent the handbook on so that we could have that on the screen and look at some of these things. If you can go to page 13, and we're looking at the page number, not what the computer says is the page number, but the page number in the bottom corner of each page. So just keep scrolling down until you get to 13. So there are bylaws that are changes. And actually, I'm sorry, will you go back up to that one that has the 4 different pictures? Right, keep going right there. If we can get all 4 on the screen, there's 2. Go up. Just so that you can understand how we're going to read this. Yep, right, okay, so purple is emergency proposals. I think there's only one. Something essential that didn't hit the deadlines, but we needed to address. Blue are bylaws, proposals, and the WASDA Board of Directors makes the bylaw modifications. Green is permanent. Those are permanent standing things, and that is made by Resolutions Committee, and that is the one that I am on. And yellow is legislative, made by the Legislative Committee, and or proposals from outside members to the Legislative Committee or to the Resolutions Committee. What to have WASDA go after for state and federal legislative changes, just to kind of get what those are. So, okay, if you'll go to page 13. So these are the bylaws. We're going to keep going until we get to, I can't see the page number. Okay, so this one is director areas, and it's to make, they're proposing, so we are part of District 11. Under WASDA, there's 11 districts geographically. And District 2 is the greater Seattle area and has a much larger population of students than all the rest of the state districts. And so they are proposing in the bylaws to add that everybody gets one representative on all the standing committees except for Area 2, and they get to have 2 representatives. Currently, they have 2 representatives on legislative. They have 4 for legislative committee, where everybody else has 2. And for the resolutions committee, everybody else has 1, and they currently have 2. So that is a modification that they're proposing. And when we do General Assembly, there are just general votes. And then if somebody wants to pool, somebody can say, but we want to do it according to votes by students. If they think that it's going to change the vote, they can. Someone can request that. And then every district has X number of votes. And I can't remember. Ken and Mike, you've actually been with me in the voting room before. I think, Ken, you were our vote. We sat at a table with an Area 2 person that explained the voting change, that difference. So just Area 2 has already a lot of power because of the votes that way. Do we want to approve that?
So is it because of the number of students that they're asking for the more representation?
Yes. So currently the change is only to all other standing committees, like WIAA and Forest Initiative. There's a lot of different standing committees that WASDA has. Thoughts?
I'd say yes.
I'm okay with it myself.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Then let's go to page 15, which is elections. So if you'll scroll up, I think that one wasn't that big of a, oh, right there it is. Sorry. So this is where they're announced. They're proposing to announce board of directors at the annual conference instead of nominated and elected there. Before they were nominated and elected at the thing, they're now proposing that they are, like we already voted on ours. That already took place before. Technically, we're outside of the bylaws when we did that. So they're proposing this change that they're just announced there.
Yes.
Okay, we're all good with that? All right. Okay, so next we're going to positions. 23 is the page number. So these next ones
Our president-elect, just for information, is Mr. Mabry from the Kennewick School District.
Yes, and there is a runoff election for the vice president. I don't know if you all got your ballots today
I
in the
voted
mail.
today.
Not in the mail. In the email.
Yeah.
Right. So the rest of these bylaws changes, I didn't seem big to me. I mean, they were minor changes. So we're going to page 23. This is the legislative positions. And they have broken them down into different subjects this time. Category 1 is learning. They put all of the topics related to learning, permanent and legislative, all together. And then the next category, number 2, is, I think it's on the next page, is I think staff. And there wasn't any changes there. Category 3 is capital facilities and school construction, 1. Category 4 is funding and allocations. There's a few. And then category 5 is governance. This is the section that the legislative or the resolutions committee, we modify a specific section every year. So there's a lot in there, but we're not going to actually look at those because if it's suggested do pass, then say yes. That's all I say. Okay, so then it says page 27, page 27. So this is the learning section that I talked about. So let's see. This is, can you keep scrolling until we get to a yellow one? I thought I took out the ones that were, there we go, legislative. So here's the ones that we need to decide if we're going to approve or not approve, and which are like the top 5 that we consider the most important, so that WASDA can say there's these 3 big ones that we're going after to have state laws changed to affect. This is how, or at the local level, we affect the state level. Reducing barriers for students from underserved groups to transition to post-secondary education. So they're saying that college needs to provide childcare, food insecurity issues, housing insecurity issues, mental health support, and financial security. And that post-secondary education needs to develop those programs, streamline the FAFSA, WASFA application process, get it easier to get college credits in high school, college credit for prior knowledge via assessment and work-based education. So, do we want to talk about whether we want to approve or not approve? Do we just want to say do the pass and not pass? And then just come up with like our top priorities? And Pete, I definitely want to hear your way in as well.
Pass.
Okay. So if there's one that seems like, oh, that's really important to me, like, I don't know, if you want to make a number or say, oh, I think that's important, and somebody gets to make a note, and then we'll go back and figure out which ones. So it doesn't affect Othello, but it affects our students that go on. So, all right. Then the next one. I think it's just on the next page. Mastery-based credits to use graduation. So the new position statement is what that they're changing, and then their
Rationale for it.
right. Initiate or support legislation that implements mastery-based learning working group recommendations. So that's a.
Can you elaborate mastery-based, Pete, what that would mean? What does that encompass?
Yeah, so it looks like what they're saying here is that they're going to give students more opportunities to earn credit, so they might be able to accelerate their pathways by demonstrating mastery instead of, traditionally it's been seat time. Are you there? Have you been there a certain number of days? Like the state has progressively been moving towards this sort of mastery-based, competency-based world, and so it makes sense that it would be part of their policy agenda.
Okay.
How would that affect Othello, do you think, Peter, will it?
It certainly it could. So if you thought about a kid who, let's say we were going to offer some CTE courses or a course equivalency around IT, and I'll use someone in the room as an example. So let's say Rigo has a child who's at our high school and has a background in a competency and a mastery level understanding of particular courses. Could he demonstrate that mastery through some sort of assessment or certification and move on to the next course? Just move a little more rapidly. It's along the lines of individualized learning and personalized learning. So absolutely it could impact kids depending on how broad the state allows this to happen, like what categories they allow it to happen in.
I want to apologize. Emma, I appreciate you for being here. I don't think we need any translation tonight. Thank you. Sorry, I look over there and I'm like, okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Required assessments, state required assessments. So this was submitted by someone that was on resolutions committee with me. And support legislation and policy that limits the impact of state required testing on students' instructional time and experiences. Basically, less tests or other tests are also allowed besides options beyond the SMART or balanced. Retain district local control over the test selection.
Pete, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think there's certainly always been a push against standardized assessments and whether or not it's the appropriate thing to do for our students. I think on the other side of this issue, though, is where's the standard for our kids, and how do we assess what's happening in our schools in a common way? So I guess I'd have to read it a little more closely. It doesn't call for eliminating that as an assessment, but just expanding the options for meeting standard. And so I might think about this as how it would impact our students that are graduating. You know, a kid who has struggled to pass a state assessment for whatever reason, and they get to that senior year and they've demonstrated, you know, they meet our core values, they're meeting the components of the graduate profile, they're making progress in other ways, meaningful ways. If this would expand options for them to demonstrate competency. So again, the theme of these first three that you shared are just expanding opportunities for kids. And that's why I think we would certainly want to support them.
Okay. Next is about remote learning and having a public option for that. There's a lot of different school districts that put into this. Permit students to choose a modality or combinations of modality without loss of opportunity. So, and more than the pass and not pass is more like, what things do we think are the most important that we want the state to change the laws or to go after getting these kinds of things. And then next, curriculum protection. Oppose legislation aimed at coercing or directing school districts into providing an incomplete, misleading, sanitized, or an inequitable presentation of verifiable facts through mandated curriculum and/or curriculum resources or sanctions. That is some really loud language, I think. I think potentially aimed at a couple of curriculums that are out there, but do we want to have this as one of our priorities?
I don't even know what that's trying to say.
What is the big buzzword that nobody wants? The equity training that's
Critical race
Yeah.
theory.
there. We go. I think that this is one of those that she's addressing.
She's for it or
No,
against it?
she's against it.
Okay.
And I'm just reading that into this. Martha is super nice, but is going to tell you what her opinion is.
Okay.
And I think this also references sex ed. Personally, is where I think those are two, and not specifically referencing it, but trying to do away with things that are not verifiable facts or things like that. And in her rationale, it says, we would not purchase a math curriculum that advocates 2 + 2 = 5, or a science curriculum that says, you know, facts are things that are proven to be true. And there are a lot of curriculums out there that the state has only done one subject that says you have to use approved curriculum or something that fits into this umbrella. They've never done that on any other curriculum except for sex ed. There's a longer name for it, but that's what we all identify it as. And if they're going to do that with one, then does that open the door for other topics as well? Pete, do you have any? I mean, I don't want you to not weigh in if you want to say something, but you know me, you have to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at the heart of this one is really local control. and how much say does each school district and each board of directors and the community have in the content that we'll put in front of our students. So along some of those more controversial items like critical race theory or the sex ed curriculum that's out there, those kinds of topics. I think you could read this either way. There are some folks that might be saying, well, we believe those things to be true, so you are required to teach them and to use them. So I think I'd need some more detail around actually what this does say, because I think it could go either way. But I think at the heart of it is, again, local control and the ability to determine what the standards are in our community. Do they meet the state standards, but also what do we believe locally and what are we putting in front of our kids?
So when you first asked Jen, like, what do you guys feel really passionately about? That is my answer, is I want local control. And I want to fight for that.
Okay.
Nothing bothers me more than when we have fake local control.
Yes.
Sometimes the things that the state throws down to you is they have, I think, the attitude of one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that way.
It's true.
Every community is unique and different in their way of thinking and stance, and definitely we need that local control.
Yep.
So do we want to have this as one of our, like, for now, rising to the top sections? Okay. All right. Any other topics or thoughts we want to say on this one? I could have easily reached out to Martha and said, what's your intent? But I didn't. I just was trying to read it right off of the page. Okay, the next one is to award diplomas posthumous. Can somebody say that?
Nope.
Humuously post. There we go. So if a student passes away, or that they still would get their diploma. Okay. Any pauses or anything? Okay. Next is digital equity. So Cindy McMullen is the one that did our training. And she is a retired lawyer. She actually has a lot in here. Initiate and support legislation for policies. So then it was actually amended. So in the second one that we're going to read, prioritize funding for students' digital needs, especially in response to distant learning model. Students' need for one-to-one devices and ongoing maintenance, upgrading, and replacement of devices from federal and state dollars. Priorities. Do we want this to be one of those higher things? Our district was leaps and bounds above other districts within the state. Districts that had, I thought, a lot of money did not have one-to-one, that they bought them like a year later for their students, that I just can't comprehend sometimes. But I want the state to fund that better. Okay, we kind of saying yes there. Okay, next is basically support BEA, basic education assistance, in extreme circumstances, and then it was proposed amended. Funding gaps created by emergency circumstances and shortfalls in responsive funding, so that the state comes up with the shortfalls during emergency circumstances. I want to pass it. I don't know if that's a priority for me. Okay. This next one is graduation requirements for career pathways. And again, this one was amended. This is also Cindy McMullen, who gave us that training. Change requirements, credit requirements for graduation to 20. And more career and technical education opportunities, personalized pathways. So, do we want to, I say definitely pass this, but do we want to have this one as a priority?
What do we have now, 24 credits?
Yeah, so what you hear across the state is this, right, this core 24 idea that's been around for several years, but in our district, we've actually been above that standard for quite some time. So again, this is really similar to the ones that we talked about at the start of this conversation, which are expanding opportunities for kids. So it doesn't mean we couldn't have more locally, but it looks like it does open up CTE opportunities for kids, or to provide competency in other areas, demonstrating that they have earned a high school diploma.
I just want to make sure that this doesn't open itself or lend itself to what happened in Oregon, where they lowered the standards and everything else. You know, I can see the amount of credits, as long as the overall showing of the student, I mean, encompasses everything that it should. I mean, I don't know how that works at the end of the day with credits, but I just don't want to be a part of something that takes away reading, writing, and math, and all, whatever we heard in Oregon that was like lowering,
Right.
you know, that kind of
Well,
stuff. And I don't think that this is it, but that's why I asked what we were, and I thought, okay, if we're going to make it easier and they're taking 4 credits away, we're just making it easier. And
Well, and we can still
Sounds like it's
approve it, but not have it be a priority, because there's lots of other places that are more experiences, more pathways, more opportunities. So, okay, I'm fine with not a priority. Okay, next one is McKinney Vento homeless assistance funding. Do you know how many McKinney Vento students we have in our school district? I think there was like 7 last year. I know that could change.
Yeah, definitely. The primary function of McKinney Vento in our district is the annual training that we provide for staff that we're required to do. But typically, what we have more is combined housing, students, multiple families in one dwelling that may or may not qualify for this funding. So it certainly is a portion of our students.
Right. So this is more about eliminating roadblocks and then giving them more supports and solutions to overcoming homelessness, which it is good and important, but I'm not quite sure for us that this is a big priority. Okay. 38 and 39 talk about school safety, and this is actually a do not pass. It was submitted, and then they then go down. They modified it a little bit, and it still is, it's pretty big what this ask is. And then there's a whole firearms section back and forth and back and forth. So this is a do not pass, just so that you're aware. And then on page 40, this is a comprehensive school and student safety submitted by another person on the legislative committee. And I think it's better. And so this is a do pass. And then if you go to they did make some modifications on this one as well. Initiate and support legislation to increase the student experience of physical, social, and emotional safety, including funding for training, safety and security staff, locally relevant and culturally responsible all hazards approach for planning and managing student crises. So I was happy with the modifications on this one, personally. I'm not sure we want to make it a priority of ours. I think we only get 5. And then we have to list what our top 5 are. Okay, let's go to the next one. It's page 42 is a world language. Funds, innovative models or opportunities for comprehensive world language instruction in kindergarten through 12th grades. So, okay. Dual credit options. So stable and equitable funding systems to cover costs associated with dual credit options. We basically already do this within our district, but it's legislation that helps support that as well. So I didn't really think of that as a big priority. Okay, next. So we're getting into the next facilities. Eligible school construction revenue. Initiate or support legislation that establishes ongoing, sustainable, and dedicated source of revenue in addition to common school trust revenue to fully fund school construction. The dedicated revenue should equal the state sale tax receipts from all school construction projects. Pete, any thoughts on this one? I think that this should actually be a priority. Legislative committee actually proposed this.
Yeah, I think absolutely with the state of affairs in our district and kind of where we're moving towards this, yep. Makes sense it would be one of the top items for us.
Okay. This is the only one under school facilities. Then now we're going to go to funding. So the next one, I think you have to go through this page and then to the next one. Funding for nutritious meals for students. This is another Martha Rice from Yakima. Currently, the state, if you have 60% of your students eligible, then all of them can get free and reduced. Well, prior to 2017, it was only 40%. So she's saying move the state number to the federal number of 14. Their district is also 100% free and reduced like ours. She's saying go from 60 to 40 at the state level because the federal is 40%. She's saying more students should get free and reduced lunch throughout the state. So, yes, yes. Districts, for districts to qualify. So there's this one, and then there's the next one also deals with universal free school meals. This is Brenda Rogers. She is the last year's, I can't remember. Last year's president-elect. WASDA will advocate for federal adoption of a universal free school meals policy. Free to everybody, federally, across the nation. So.
Actually, I agree with that. We asked the kids to come to school for 7 hours a day, and during the time, I believe we should feed them too as part of that education system. Nutritional meals, it makes a difference on their health and their learning capability.
Right.
I honestly believe.
So the
that should
last
be
one
part of the
was
system.
state, and this one is federal, and I really like this one as well. Any other thoughts? Do we want to make this a priority? Okay, I'm seeing enough head nods. Okay, next, equity-based P through 12 funding. So this is also Martha Rice and Moses Lake. And so equity-based educational funding model determined by student need for P12. So preschool through 12 education. No ultimate outcome. No students suffer from inequities with this model. So I like this one a lot. Let's get funding for it. It's not, but this makes more money from the state level. Yeah, to help us do it. And it really focuses on equity-based education funding instead of every student is the exact same and we should get X dollar amount for every student. We get a lot more than that because of other grants, and we have an amazing finance department and grant writers. But we need more. all of those things that it talks about in this, we have all of those students persistently and disproportionately impacted by opportunity gaps. And that's not just that's for every single student within this district.
But does this eliminate our current model?
No,
Does this replace it or just enhance it?
it just says initiate or support.
Well, if it doesn't hinder us in any way, I mean,
Any thoughts?
Well, it looks like the position is that they would ask the funding folks to consider the impacts of living in a rural area, not having access to some of the other opportunities that other students may have, considering those factors when funding schools. So, there's a price tag attached to each of these. I think it's a matter of determining what makes the most sense for our system.
Okay. Next, federal aid. Continued strong funding and appropriations for all line items from the Federal Impact Aid Program. I don't know if it's not now, or I'm Cindy McMullen also did this one. So,
I don't think it impacts us I don't think it's
like
a big
others,
priority.
right. So not as big of a priority for us. 49 is, deals with districts specifically under 500, and the suggestion is do not pass. There are some odd things in there that I just was uncomfortable with, so I agree with the do not pass. Okay, transportation is next. And I think that there's a proposed change, initiate or support legislation to modify student transportation allocation formula. Additional transportation costs, there's like a lot of different bullets here to do a lot of different things. I don't know if we want this to be one of the priorities for us, but okay. Budget stability is next. And then there's a modification on this one. Initiate or support legislation, ensure funding of school district operations and obligations necessary for basic education. Okay. Levy and LEA is the next one. This proposes to change the number from 1.5 per thousand AVA to much higher. Keep going up. They've got some blue on the next part. Or up to 3,000 per student is LEA was changed a few years ago. We were at a much higher level and the state dropped it down, but then they took some money. It affects property taxes. I'm comfortable with where we're at as a district right now with the money that state gives us personally. Other districts have been grossly impacted by this because our local number was taken down, but then we got more from the state, was the short version. Okay. ESSA funding and flexibility is the next one. There's and I don't even know what ESSA funding is. Do you, Pete?
I can get it from you real quick, just to make sure we're accurate.
Greater flexibility in using ESSA for any declared state or federal emergency situation.
Yeah, so these are federal funds from the U.S. Department of Education. So every Student Succeeds Act is just sort of the acronym that changes along the line.
Okay.
Just gives you more flexibility to use that funding.
All right. Okay, let's go to page 89. It's a ways. So these are all the changes that the resolution committee did. just basically cleaning up a bunch of stuff. There was a lot of weird things in there that were duplicates or were somewhere else. So all of that red was, take that out. It says it somewhere else. Take this out. Let's move this here. Let's make this be clearer. And it was thrilling to go through those and make those changes, but I don't think that you need to see every little detail there. Yeah, okay, that one right there. Okay, go up a little bit more. This one is K-12 regulations. This is also from Cindy. Advocate with agencies overseeing K-12 for limits on regulations only to those necessary to implement a program, and eliminating redundancies and providing data. I'm sure there's a lot of redundancies in data that has to be given. Is this something that the district sees gobs of? I mean, would this make it better for you guys?
This would not be a priority for
Okay.
us, no.
All right. Next, we have like 3 more to go, I promise. That's it. Attract, recruit, and retain diverse school board directors. So this is a lot of different districts put this together. So I want to just read you some of the bullet points. Better reflect the student populations they serve, encourage equity across state, and remove barriers that inhibit participation to be on the school board, including, here's some ideas: announcing and inform the community about upcoming elections, provide information to the community about the process and requirements, informational sessions. Some of these things we've already done as a district, as a board. Simplify qualifications, and enhance the ability to get a diverse school board, like giving a salary to a school board director. That eliminates a resource barrier. Compensation is opt-out instead of opt-in. School district or state elected, like one's having daycare provided. One is state funding to do, there was a lot of different things. One of the things on this, though, is if you'll keep scrolling down a little bit, keep going. I think that there's an amendment to this one, to the next page. I thought. There it is. So Martha Rice from Yakima wanted to do a proposed amendment to this. Right there in red, it says, broaden the eligible candidate pool, eliminate citizenship requirements to allow permanent legal residents to serve. And then in her rationale as to, she did not want that to be one of the options. She wants that. She says, you have to register, you have to be able to vote to serve, that is a constitutional right. I like a lot of these things, and maybe we as a board need to focus on some of these things. We, in some ways, represent our community well, and in other ways, we don't. And I've had people say, you guys don't represent us that way at all. And I said, well, I think we actually would in ways that you don't know, because we're not public about some of those things. So I like the amendment. Maybe we as a board need to focus on some of these things more.
I think for me personally, this is an asterisk one where it's important.
You want to have this be one of the priorities?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our board, our schools are 90% Hispanic. We got Mike. I know I'm 100% Caucasian. Ken, Jen, Sharon, I know you are not, but I don't think that we are adequately representing, the 5 of us, our community. We don't have a 90% Hispanic board. Not that people can't, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not saying anything bad about anybody on the board, but we live in a predominantly Hispanic community, and we need some Hispanic leadership on this board. Not only Mike.
And Pete.
And
I mean,
Pete.
you're not
I mean,
technically
he's
a
the
board member,
he's
but
the
you're,
superintendent.
yes,
I'm just saying, out of the 5 of us,
Yes.
this is talking specifically to school boards.
yes.
I would love to see more representation that looked like our community.
Um,
I love that we have a predominantly female board. That's a first for our
Right.
district, definitely.
In the last 10 years, definitely, or actually more like 15.
There was ever a predominantly female board?
Actually, it took 10 years to get a female back on the board. It had been a 10-year break of having only males on the board. When I was elected, it had been a 10-year break. So I don't know about predominant.
This is Othello's first predominantly female board
Wow.
ever. Look at us,
Yes.
we're game changers. Just kidding.
And then not only according to race, but we have, I think last time I looked it up, 76% qualify for free and reduced lunch. One of the 5 of us that I'm aware of qualify for free and reduced lunch. So,
So we need more.
yes,
75% of our board is not representing 75% of our students. I don't know if I said the right thing, but you know what I mean.
any other thoughts? I mean, I would agree that this is one of the priorities with the amendment. Do more than just the 2 of us want this to be a priority for WASDA? Or we could just make this a focus that we have ourselves.
To me, it's more of a local thing, because at a state level, it's gonna get lost. I concur with some of the statements that are made, that have been made, but at the same time, plenty, I mean, it was Juan and I, there was a couple of us for a while. It isn't because we are not inclusive of it as a community or anything. I don't know if it's the fear of the time requirement or what it is that keeps some people from not wanting to run, throw their name in the race.
I
But,
think that, well, just look at our race now. We've got 3 people running uncontested in Othello. In one of the most controversial times that our state has ever seen, our community has been divided over many issues over the last 18 months, and we have 3 uncontested positions. So that tells me a couple things. This is a huge time commitment, and people want to get paid, or they want some sort of something that makes this attractive to them. Like some school boards offer health benefits to their members, or they have the option to buy into what the school's medical benefits, or they offer a salary, or anything. If you look at county commissioners, people run for county commissioner. It's a paid position, and they're highly contested positions most of the time. You just don't see that here in Othello for school board, which is unfortunate. I wish that the 3 positions that we were all running against people, because that means more people in our community were stepping up to be on the school board. So maybe not at a WASDA level, but at a local level, I think we need to re-examine what we're doing as a board.
So are we calling this a local?
Yeah, well.
Okay.
I think so.
I'm fine with that. Okay, next, page 92.
2 more?
Yes, I know. We did this one. Keep going up. Nope, the other way up. Sorry. This is the amendment. It's really long. Okay. Participation in local voter pamphlets. So when there is a levy, having the county auditor or other official appoint a for and against citizen committee in the voter guide statements about local bonds and levy issues. There's parts I like and parts I don't like about this one, I'll be honest. Maybe not a priority. Okay. And then the last one is, I think also from Martha Rice in Yakima. And then we're going to need to look at the keep going up a little bit. So legislation that is more time, academic time for students. Stop right there. Okay, just a little bit the other way. There we go. Including options for summer school programs, increase the length of the student's school year, financial flexibility and incentives for a modified school calendar, a balanced instructional calendar at any or all of their school buildings. So they took out in the amendment year-round instruction and said a balanced instructional calendar, meaning whatever we want it to be. Do we want this one to be a priority? I'm thinking no. Okay, none of you jumped to that one.
No.
Okay, so we have 5. Curriculum protection that we like kind of, unless somebody else wrote something down. Curriculum protection, digital equity, school construction revenue, universal free school meals, that's at the federal level, and equity-based preschool through 12 funding.
Yep.
Are we all happy with those? Okay.
Read them again.
Do you want me to just give you the number? Because they all have the number out to the side. Would that be easier?
Yeah.
32, curriculum protection. 34, digital equity. 44, school construction revenue. 46, universal free school meals. 47, equity-based preschool through 12 funding.
So did I.
Oh, okay,
I
well,
started number 2. So I'm like 2.
do you know what? I am giving you the page numbers. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, not the numbers. Yeah, totally
Yeah.
wrong. Sorry. Page numbers. I wrote down page numbers. Okay, so what other ones? What was the names of the other ones? Were
No,
you
I think I had the same names. I just had
Okay.
different numbers.
same for you? Same names, just different numbers. Anything else I
Nope,
missed?
That was good.
Okay.
The only thing, I just have something for next year that you might want to keep in mind.
Yes.
I know we're supporting the digital equity, but it won't work if you haven't got access to internet. And I would like to see WASDA more involved in supporting broadband to rural communities and communities that need more access to the internet.
I think that it kind of referenced in like a secondary way that in a few of these, but I didn't highlight that. But any person, any school board member across the state or any board can actually propose any of these things. So we as a board then need to propose digital, and maybe some of these digital equity things, like in lower bullets, reference that. Digital broadband.
I thought I saw the word broadband in the one that we approved. I'd have to read it again, but I thought I had that same thought, Ken, and then I thought, oh, okay, maybe that's what it's talking about. So I don't know, but I agree about the broadband.
Well, and even if it does not become one of WASDA's top priorities, then we need to address it again and say, this is one of the top priorities. Okay, awesome. Yep, how was that for 5 minutes?
All right, very good. Not even
Sorry, I'm sorry.
close. I'm going to breeze through the rest of this. Regional meeting tomorrow at Ritzville. I've notified Jen I will not be able to make it. I will be attending a viewing service for a cousin of mine in Pasco. She wanted to have a discussion on rides.
Who was able to go, who was interested in going in person and who, let's just start there. In person,
I was going to go in person, but I'm switching to Zoom.
okay? Zoom?
And I
Not able.
cannot go, I have another commitment.
Okay. I will go by myself. That's still my plan. We'll see how it goes. Okay.
Alrighty.
No problem.
We have the schedule or the agenda for the Wajita school visit on the 19th.
If I'm home.
I think it's well put together. I agree with that.
I like that there's a whole para section. I wish it could be all of PSC, but I know that we can't always pull all of PSC out.
Okay. Our, what's it called? Plus delta of our meeting is in the box there. Consuelo, thank you for being here. As you'll notice, what could we change for our future meetings was to have you here. Thank you for being here. Elise, I'm sure you're busy doing what you're doing, and we understand. We appreciate you. And I know that behind the scenes there's stuff that you're doing and staying active, so thank you. As we committed, the superintendent goals, the annual calendar's there. I don't know if there's anything in the annual calendar that anybody wants to mention. Okay. Well, very good. Moving on to student representative reports. Consuelo, do you have anything to report tonight? Awesome.
Yes, I do. So Elise wrote up the report for me. So
Okay.
at OHS, they started back 100% today. Homecoming week is October 18th through the 23rd. October 18th is college dress-up day with hall decorations as the evening activity. October 19th is pink out dress-up day with pink out as the varsity soccer game. That evening, October 20th, is a twin day with powder puff games and the male drill team performing at halftime. October 21st, the Husky Pride Day with Husky Olympics and homecoming football game versus Ellensburg. And then October 22nd is the homecoming dance. At DOHS, we just sent out our first newsletter ever. We sent it out to all our parents and board members, and the goal is to do this each month. And then we recognized the student of the month and perfect attendance for September. And the September attendance was sophomores were at 83%, juniors also at 83%, and seniors were at 84%. And the school-wide average was 84% of the students were attending on a regular basis.
Consuelo, are you a senior or a junior?
I'm a senior.
Woohoo!
And the students will be taking the Healthy Young survey tomorrow. And they're also going to be getting ready for the math, ELA, and science state assessments next week. I'm not looking forward to that, I can tell you that. Some of the art students entered their works of art into the Sandhill Crane Festival project. Mrs. Garza did a nice job encouraging the students to enter. And thank you, Ms. Stevenson, for inviting us.
There was some awesome artwork for the poster contest. It's a $500 prize. We'll see who it is. We pick Thursday.
Oh, that's exciting. At MMS is Kindness Week for Smile for
Kyle.
Kyle. Sorry, I cannot read today. Dress Up Day includes PJ Day, Sports Day, Wacky Day, Twin Day, and Superhero Day. Advisory competitions. Last week they had their first ever rep meeting with one student from each class to announce October events. And then next week is Pink Out for Breast Cancer Awareness, and they're starting Mustang Pride Fridays. And then at Wajita's, they're making sure students know their value and that someone is there for them by having teachers meet one-on-one or give them written notes every Monday. And then at Hiawatha is Dress Up Days for Kindness Week, and they're completing Fall SBA. So that's everything.
Awesome.
Thank you, Consuelo. Awesome.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you, both you, Elise and Consuelo.
Can I say something real quick, Mike?
Sure, absolutely.
I was thrilled to see that our high school is back full-time and that homecoming week is happening for them because it's exciting times. I mean, I loved homecoming week. So I'm so glad that that's happening for our kids.
Awesome.
Really great. A dance is happening?
Yeah, there was some commotion in the community, I think a misunderstanding about what we were allowed to do or were going to allow. But the time we were shut down was when homecoming was originally scheduled. So in shutting down and putting a pause on that, we just had to push some things back. But they were able to coordinate it. Some parents rallied that wanted to help, continue with the work, and staff members. So it's a great partnership, and they're putting on an event, absolutely.
Great. I love that.
Good to hear. Awesome. Moving on to item C1. I'll entertain a motion for required approvals.
I have a quick question before that happens. In accounts payable, there's two different ones that I wanted to know about. We paid Country Fabrics $4,555. What was that for?
Yep, that was for some new sewing machines for the home and family classes, the CTE courses at the high school.
Great. And study.com for $12,000.
So study.com is software licensing, and it's for Othello High School, and it's a 1-year subscription to that resource.
So both of those were on last year's school budget. Is that to use those funds up?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Great. Well, I use all of those perfectly. I propose that we approve the required approvals.
Motion's been made by Director Stevenson to approve required approvals. Can I get a second?
I second.
Seconded by Director Prowse. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
We do have a personnel assignment order. We're losing someone that is so valuable. Our director of maintenance, that is going to be a big loss, and I hope that the district is prepared to be able to fill that. Someone that knows everything about every building and has every memory.
Thank you, Orland. All right, moving on to item C2, superintendent informational items.
Yeah, we have 4 items this evening. We're going to start actually with OSD Board Policy Review Process, and so John Wiseman is going to share an update for a proposed plan that we'd like to bring to the board, and take your questions this evening before we firm up any contracts or make a plan moving forward.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity. I feel like we've had a lot of WASDA today, but we're going to have a little bit more, but not as long. We had promise. The board had brought up the need to look at a process of what it'd be to go through all of our board policies that we have and to make sure that they're current and up to date, and if there's any changes that we need to make. And if you look at the number of policies that have already been adopted, it's a huge and daunting task for that. And so what we have here is a review process that we're recommending, which would be a partnership with WASDA. And so what they would do is they would actually go through like a fine-tooth comb all of the policies that we have, and we would submit to them in batches. So we do like the 1000 series and the 2000 series and so on. And what they'd be looking for is, are there things in the policies that are missing? Does the language need to be updated? There are legal references that need to be made, or resources or cross-references, or things that are obsolete. And so they would really go through that process and then flag those and identify them and then submit it back to us. At that point, we would take just those that have been flagged and then present it to the board, and even, depending on the numbers, chunk those out to go through and say, do we want to accept the recommendations, or what sort of verbiage do we want to include or be part of that? So the board would be directly involved in that review process, but we would allow WASDA to be the ones that identify more the legal side of it, and making sure that things are current and up to date. And so, and we were thinking that, going through such an extensive process, it would take, realistically, try to put together a time frame as an example, but we would want to see first if this is something that we want to move forward with. But if we had that partnership with WASDA, we'd be looking like an 18-month process from the time that we submit our 1000 series to the time that we close out for the 6000 series. And then that would be a 2 to 3 year cycle, depending on what the board would want to do as far as going back and having a similar process again.
So is WASDA okay with this timeline?
So we have submitted it to them and just waiting to hear back from them. I was really
Okay.
hoping that we get it today. But as soon as we do have that information to see if that's realistic. I know this is the process that they suggest on their website, that it is by batches and chunks. And it says specifically, they do everything they can to match the timeline of the board. And so,
My next question is, what is the cost?
$8,000,
Okay, for the year and a half worth?
yes.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions for that? And then it would be similar to others where we could set up a time where it'd be like a first read to go through it, and then the next time it would be for approval.
Good with that?
I like it.
All right.
I thought you were gonna have us do them, and I was going, oh my God.
You'd have to pay me more
Well,
than
that was Plan
$8,000.
B, was to have Director Schutte go through all of them for us and then present it each night,
I
so,
mean, this is.
Right.
I do vote for that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. All right, the next item, C2, is redistricting update. I think as many of you are aware, we've had a census recently, and so that data is coming into state agencies and other folks. And it impacts your districts and the folks that you represent. So there's a company that the district has partnered with for several years, and a gentleman who will do an analysis of the constituents that live in your director districts. And he's done an initial analysis and said there's just some slight changes, but nothing significant. But is requesting that he moves on to step 2. And so you'll see in the messaging that he's provided, that's really getting your address and the address of any potential candidates for your positions, just to make sure that the lines are appropriate and are drawn in a proper way. So this project is in the hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars, but it's something that we need to get some feedback from the board on whether or not you'd like him to move on to step 2.
I love
Yes.
that hundreds of dollars answer over the thousands. I'm on for that.
Yes.
Basically, this is just the same process that we went before when we decided to add another at-large position. But the data that we got was 10 years old, and we decided to hold off, yeah.
Yeah, and so his initial feedback, Ken, is that it's the same idea, what you
Mhm.
just recommended, but that I think there was one area in particular that grew a little faster than another
Mhm.
area. So should lines be moved just to be more representative of
Yes.
folks? So
Definitely.
wouldn't be significant changes or significant impact to your areas, but it would keep us in compliance and in line moving forward. So I'm going to take that as okay to move forward
Yep.
with him,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we'll
Definitely.
reach out to you with, okay. The next item is Superintendent Student Leadership Team, and we talked about this at, I think, the last couple of board meetings, so wanted to bring the plan to you in a more formal way and let you know sort of the vision behind it and the purpose of connecting and linking with students, much like we did with PSE tonight and Consuelo's presence here and why we all think it's so important. But this will allow us to be in a little less formal setting than a public board meeting, but still a structured experience for students and for the districts. And so that provides some content for you. I just wanted to let you know that the work that I'm going to press on with gives you some timelines and membership and who it's going to represent and the expectations for those students that participate. And again, then there's some timelines for us to gather up. And I think for this first year, we're talking about, I think it's 4 meetings for us to gather and get some input from students. And then we would expect it would be a monthly activity moving forward next year as we get it launched into more traditional format, traditional school year. And it's not meant to take the place of the student reps on the board, but really to give me an opportunity to connect with students in the district to talk about important issues that are happening. I think about like the first meeting with them might be around the graduate profile and sharing that concept with them. These are students that are going to be through our system in the next couple of years if they're in high school and may not be impacted by that work, but certainly their experience could inform our work. So I just wanted to provide that update to the board to let you know we're continuing to move forward with it, and you should expect updates as the year moves forward, and perhaps at some point expect some of those students or their representatives to be here providing information to you.
Do you have a number of how big you're gonna?
Yeah, I think it'll be in the, in the range of 10 to 12 to 15, that kind of number.
And you are suggesting the meetings from 11:30 to 12:30, so I assume on a weekday during school, so would they be excused like from a class or?
Yeah, we actually have had a conversation about when is most appropriate. So the two concepts that we're wrestling with are, we do a lunch meeting, provide lunch, bring the kids in. Another one that has been suggested is we do it during PLC time, so that those students wouldn't miss any classes.
Monday.
I think what we want to do initially is get this group of kids together, see how much interest there is, and then get some feedback from them about what works best. So those are the two ideas being tossed around during the regular school day, so we eliminate some of the barriers that might keep some of our athletes participating, or students that ride the bus home or can't get there, whatnot. It will definitely be during the school day.
Great.
Well,
Great.
plus it's great incentive if they're like, hey, we get to have lunch with the superintendent. Like, he's
Right.
buying us pizza or something like that. Versus I have to go in early on a day I get to sleep in. That sounds like not fun to high school kids. So I love the lunch idea.
Consuelo, what, did you have a chance to read through that? What do you think of this student leadership team?
I think it's a good idea, because, well, having the two student representatives is a great idea, but we want more input from other students. It's just a way to have more people involved, and I want to get to know more students and have their opinion instead of just having, two students' opinions on things. So,
Right, perfect, thank
I
you.
think it's a good idea.
Okay, next item is the vaccine mandate update. I think for the last 3 board meetings, we've been covering this topic, so I did want to provide some closure as we near the October 18th deadline. So just a couple of quick slides around the data and a couple of key questions. Are we going to have a staffing shortage? And I think the short answer is no. Of our 610 employees, 604 have met the mandate as of Friday. And so we still have 4 folks that we're working with. We're working with their associations. We're working with them individually to make sure we have the full story, and we've given them every option and opportunity to consider what the next steps might be. But again, the core question here is some of the speculation around a staffing shortage. We're just not going to have one. It looks like we're going to be okay. The next slide provides some context about how staff met the mandate. And this is information we're going to be required to provide to OSPI as they put out information across the state about whether or not there are going to be expected staffing shortages. So you can see there we're approaching just about 70% of our staff met the mandate through vaccine, and about 32% through an accommodation. For the next slide, we did drill down just a little bit deeper on the certificated staff, so the classroom teachers, which we have 277, a little bit higher rate for vaccine participation, right at about the 75% rate. And then the last slide is just one that we've brought each time to provide some context to the work. So it is October 11th. We have 7 days to make sure that we support every staff member with their decision-making and their process. So Sandra Villarreal and her team are working closely with our associations and with each of those members, trying to help them make sense of the deadline and the requirements. So again, just letting folks know that we're moving through those steps, and as the deadline approaches on the 18th, we will hope that we get 610 out of 610. We continue to be hopeful that we'll get there.
Good work.
All right.
Yay!
All right, moving on to item F1. The Board of Directors will recess into an executive session for 15 minutes to discuss the performance of a public employee. No action will be taken following the executive session. We will reconvene at 8:17. It's 8:14 now, and we will meet in Pete's office. We will now recess.